Unfortunately, in their wisdom, Hasbro have said that in 2023, get my decades mixed up, that they're going to dispense with all plastic packaging, which is very unfortunate, really, and really is a foolish decision, because it's going to incur the wrath of a lot of people that collect Star Wars figures and other action figure lines that keep them on card. As so many times it's been mentioned, that the success of the vintage collection is that it has the cards and, you know, that visual appeal that, you know, takes you back to the late 70s, early 80s, really. I mean, it's just, and it's not just Star Wars figures, there's other lines of figures, there's all those reactions figures that are, you know, milking the nostalgia wagon or cow, I don't know. And then there's the Mattel Origins, which, you know, put updated but very similar to the vintage Motu figures on cards that totally resemble what we got back in the mid 80s. So, you know, nostalgia plays a very important part with the current selling of action figures, because really very few children are, I mean, they'll buy the Ben 10 figures, the Imaginatics, maybe the Playmobil, and a lot of the Lego minifigs, but, you know, I mean, perhaps Hasbro's loath to admit that, you know, action figure sales are to adults, really. We are the buyers, and we want our action figures with blisters, or, you know, plastic blisters. You know, the blister, as someone pointed out on a talk yesterday, are made of recyclable PET plastic, whereas the cards, you know, the inks used on the cards are quite toxic and quite damaging to the environment. So, you know, it's very, you know, good of Hasbro to say, oh, we're going to dispense with plastic. But, I mean, that means, you know, you're going to destroy the visual appeal of these carded figures. We want figures that look how they did back in the 70s and 80s. That's, you know, even with these more modern figures, you know, we've still got the clear blister. You know, they still follow a certain design. They use an image, they use the Star Wars logo at the top, and then the blister. Same with the Power of the Force, same with other lines, like this Rogue One Vader. You know, it's all about, you know, having a blistered figure, a carded figure. And I'm sure it's going to be a major talking point amongst us Star Wars action figure YouTubers, plus other action figure lines, you know. But it seems Hasbro's the company that seems to be bent on doing this for some reason. And, you know, in the end, I think our only response is to not buy these figures until they, I mean, that, because that will hurt them more than it hurts us, because, you know, without any sales, they're going to be thinking, well, maybe it wasn't a good idea to, you know, dispense with plastic blisters, because in the end it's all about capitalism, you know. I mean, it's not about communism, or, you know, and you know, the environment is not as dire as it's pointed out by the woke, you know. The earth it can recover totally. It has its means. It's, you know, if you look at millions of years ago, the atmosphere was what, 100% carbon dioxide or methane and stuff like that, and it just changes over the years to what it is now, which is 78% nitrogen, 21 or 20.9% oxygen, 0.9 carbon dioxide, or 0.3, I can't remember, CO2, and then 1% argon. Or, yeah, so it's, you know, that's the atmosphere that we breathe. I made a point out recently on some live stream that, you know, it's about maybe cutting down the trees is more of a worry, really, because the trees are the lungs of the planet, really, because, you know, they respire in the opposite way to us. They take in the CO2 which we give out, whereas we take in the oxygen. You know, it's the complete opposite, and then they give out oxygen. So that's why trees are described as the lungs of the earth. You know, so it's really important that more trees are planted rather than, you know, and this plastic is totally recyclable with a blister. And if it was so important, why aren't supermarkets doing the same? You know, why aren't crisps being sold in paper bags, which they used to be in the 1930s and 40s, probably, paper bags. But, you know, why aren't Walkers or Smiths or whoever was being pressurized to use paper bags? Because, you know, the plastic is convenient. It preserves the crisp for longer than, you know, if it was stored in a paper bag. So it's a matter of economics. And I think that's the only way we can really, you know, get Hasbro's attention, is by saying, if you don't bring back the plastic blisters, we won't buy your toys. Because for us inbox collectors, it's all about the packaging, you know. It's like, and, you know, Kenner is a defunct company. It's not, you know, but Hasbro use that name because they know it's that sort of retro appeal that, you know, sells these figures, really. And the way, you know, it's exactly how it was in the 80s with the name pill in the top, you know. So it's just absolute nonsense what Hasbro are proposing. And I think if us mint on card collectors, you know, sort of stop buying figures when they do move to this non-plastic card back, then, you know, Hasbro is going to have to look at their sales and say, why have they declined? And then they'll ask, you know, maybe using entirely cardboard is not such a good idea, because, you know, people want to see the figures, you know, what they look like in the blister. So I can look at this Shore Trooper and see that he looks quite nice. You know, he's got good paint. You know, there's nothing defective with the sculpt or anything like that. So it's the best way to peruse the figure, really, isn't it? So yeah, I think Hasbro are just, you know, being too woke, too foolish, and I think we need to really punish them. I mean, with the Black Series, you're more likely to open the Black Series. I mean, of all my Black Series, I keep about a third in box, the rest I just open. But, you know, with the Vintage Collection, I want them on cards. So, you know, or any other Hasbro Star Wars line, I want them carded. You know, I'm a carded collector, so, you know, I want clear blisters so I can look at the figures. I mean, this one here is starting to slightly yellow, the Power of the Force 2 figure, but that's quite an old figure now, so, you know, but it's still nice to see, you know, the figure. So I think this is gonna open, not what I'm saying, but, you know, there's going to be a lot of debating about this on live streams and stuff like that. USR were doing it a lot yesterday. So, you know, I mean, the ironic thing is that what are the figures made of? Plastic, you know. So it's just sheer nonsense. And I think if we could either do a, what do you call it, like a signature thing, we like put signatures to Hasbro and say that we don't want this, blah blah blah. If you go ahead with this, we're not gonna buy your woke product. Or we could just, you know, as a united front, and it has to be united to work, that we action figure collectors say we're not going to buy Hasbro Star Wars until they return back to the blister. So those are my initial thoughts. I might have some more later, but you know, I find it just ridiculous. Anyway, cheers, goodbye.